on there, I want to ask, maybe it sounds like a naive question, but do you all feel like from your own respective situations and also networks that there has been a turn towards more transnational alliances or various community alliances in the past year, either as a result of this or various other forces at hand? I'm curious.
Historically, solidarity movements have been working even during the time of the Marcos dictatorship. I think the contribution of international alliances to the struggle for democracy against the dictatorial rule of the Marcos regime in the 80s was very, very significant. I think, almost all progressive movements all over the world would always align themselves with a country that is, going through dictatorial and militarist rule.
Yeah, I did. Mitchell, do you want to jump in? It's interesting, at least in some of the conversations early on, and Rachel, you would know about this as much, if not more than me. In the critical kind of curatorial arts, there was discussion about whether people should pull now that there's not this hyperlocality, which we've been hearing about, which is, and Cotabing it's really hyperlocal, but not in a proprietary understanding. So it works against that. But being able to move around into specific networks of conversation has been great for Cotabing to understand the way in which their very, very local practices are connected to these extra, which they know, but it's also working in solidarity, learning from others about the specific condition making that global capitalism, global racism, global colonialism makes. So it was interesting when there was, in the beginning of the pandemic, there was this, at least in some places, talk about, we should now become local in the sense of it conflated flying and being, so I don't know how to even put it, but it was like, no, we shouldn't be flying around, therefore we should only think about where we are. And it was like, wait, we've conflated things.
We're stuck here.
Yeah, no, it was really super interesting. And then I think, of course, and I was really interested, Humberto, what you were saying, because these solidarities always go on, and through pandemics, through wars, we know that. And the conditions, though, are really, of course, are interestingly different because, say, here we are in Zoom, that the mediascapes both are open, but also controlled depending on where you are. And they're not only controlled from the state point of view, but say my colleagues in Australia, we talk all the time on text, and we talk all the time on Facebook, but no Zoom, no Skype, we don't have that, right? So it's got to be these, we critique Facebook up the wazoo, but Messenger, wow, that really allows us to continue to be in these networks. And so that part, I think, of the how, Humberto, of how we keep these alliances of solidarity going.
Yeah. I think in our context, I could definitely say that I did witness a sense of growth in terms of solidarity between different communities, both within the Netherlands and also partly transnationally. And since we've been active, of course, I can say most about that, but I think that moment of the Black Lives Matter protest movement, quite an impact.
Yeah.
As I already showed, the number of people who showed up was pretty groundbreaking, because it included all kinds of people, and not just Black people fighting this anti-Black violence, but also a lot of young white people, a lot of older white people, a lot of people from different communities of color, also acknowledging the specific form of anti-Blackness in the Dutch context, which was quite interesting, because normally in the discourse, it's first of all, the Dutch context, I think race and racism are often kind of, people are very sensitive about it. So in general, people do not want to acknowledge that it's even an issue. So in that moment, you saw that, because of the large number of people and all of the media attention and the conversations that were going on, the discourse also shifted a bit. Even politicians acknowledged that institutional racism was a problem. And within the communities, the different forms of racism, such as anti-Blackness, were acknowledged and addressed as well. So there were different conversations being organized online via Zoom, Clubhouse, about anti-Blackness and communities of color, especially Muslim communities, and vice versa. So a few very interesting conversations have happened. The other side of this movement, I do think, is that, there's sometimes this risk of like performative activism, especially on social media. It's quite easy to, say you're in solidarity and, share something, share a statement, which can definitely help. When we look, for example, at the Palestinian question, I think it's very helpful if as many as people, speak out and show that, their support. But, I do ask the question, is that enough? Is it enough to, post one thing one day and then, carry on with your lives? So sometimes it feels a bit performative. But in terms of locality versus global, the global narrative, I think with BLM, you really saw a very interesting dynamic between, what was happening globally, starting in the US, translated to the local meaning and context of anti-Blackness. So,
Michelle, I'm quite impressed with the Black Archives. And I'm curious if you'll find information in your archive about an association that existed in the 80s or maybe even in late 70s. And the name of this global alliance is, it's called Japan African Asian Latin American Artists Association. The acronym is JAALA. And a few of them came around in the Philippines to participate in an exhibition and to support the national democratic movement during the period. So there were Black artists and Latin American artists who were present in the Philippines.
Sounds fascinating. Shortly respond. I did not come across it yet, at least not consciously, because we're still processing a lot of the documents. So I can look at it with this new information. Maybe I can see what I can say is that, and relating to what I just said, looking at the documents, the archival documents from that period, 1960s, 70s, and 80s, what I find interesting was that there was, a lot of international solidarity in a time where you could argue that we have much better means of communicating transnationally now. And so they didn't have internet, Instagram, Facebook, email, and stuff like that, but there were very strong alliances and collaborations. And now it feels like, we have much better means to communicate, but that sometimes also makes it maybe a little bit superficial.
Yeah, that's right.
So
yeah, Mitchell, that's really, super interesting, right? Because the necessity to get across, like